Hello everyone and welcome to Tuesday. It's me, a disembodied voice. I'm doing something a little bit different today, simply for the fact that today, on Tuesday, I released this vlog. And it is something I've never done before. I've never made a vlog that was not us. I've never made a vlog that was a fan game like this. And I've had a lot of positive response to it, which is good, but I've also had a lot of questions. So I decided to take today to just make it about, how I did this, because there were so many questions that people had. So I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible, not go into like great detail, but give a good overview of what this is. So first things first, what is this? This is RPG Maker MV. This is a part of the RPG Maker series that came out a few years ago. This, at the time of this recording, is the most recent iteration of the software. Actually, when it came out many years ago, I covered it on First 20 because I was super excited about it because I did RPG Maker a lot whenever I was in middle and high school. And this is a notable version because it's, as you can see, it's supported on Mac, which is a big deal. Past RPG Makers, at least to my knowledge, weren't available on Mac, but you can use this software on both Mac and PC, and you can also export finished projects to the web. You can export finished projects to cell phones. So there's all sorts of possibilities, and that's really exciting. Also, I'm sure some of you probably noticed, yes, I'm getting to this a little bit late. It's been a long day. That's why it says Wednesday up here. So first things first, the software RPG Maker MV is the latest one, but there's a lot of older RPG Makers out there. So if you're interested in the software and the price tag of RPG Maker MV is too daunting, consider older software because, yes, there are new features, but also they all fundamentally do the same things. I was using software from 20 years ago when I was in middle school, and it was great. I loved it. So, just keep that sort of thing in mind, that you shouldn't let just the fact that you can't get MV be the factor between you starting to play around in the software, because it's really great. So I did everything as quickly as possible. This was all about speed. I've had a lot of people asking me, probably the biggest question is, did you know that you were going to do this, on that vlog day? Did you know that you were going to make a game? Or did you just forget to film things? And the answer is a little of both. I didn't forget to film things. I was just, I'm going to say, not terribly enthusiastic about doing it. I mean, if you think about what the contents of this game is, it's we left the house and went to a bus station, and then we went to the airport. There was not a lot to that day. And then the other thing is that I was trying to also preserve space because I wasn't bringing a laptop. I was only bringing SD cards, and I wanted to make sure that I was, holding on to as much space as I could. It almost felt like a waste to just shoot a very short vlog of, hey, we're leaving the house. Oh, now we're at the bus station. Oh, now we're at the airport. So, yeah, I actually started to formulate the day of, wouldn't it be interesting if I were to make an RPG Maker game about today? Wouldn't that be weird? Huh? And it was just kind of a thought, but I was also playing through Dragon Quest, while I was on the plane, and it really kind of cemented it for me. I was like, you know what? I think I could probably do this. Now, the footage that you see in the vlog, if you want to call this a vlog, I think you can still call it a vlog. The footage you see in the vlog of Dragon Quest is me actually playing Dragon Quest while I was on the airplane. When I got to the final battle, I used the iPhone's screen capture software that's built in and just captured it, because I figured, you know what, I haven't shot anything today. In the event I don't make this game, at least I will have this footage that I can talk about or something, and then that'll just be the vlog for the day. So that was kind of my backup plan. But I decided to go ahead and make the full game anyway. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about what you see and how it works. So RPG Maker works on a grid system. It's probably obvious from just seeing the game played. You basically can paint on whatever tiles you want. You've got a huge tile set, and there's a bunch of different tile sets that are included in RPG Maker that come with it. I'm using this. I think this one's specifically called Sci-Fi Inside. So this is like a sci-fi theme, but really it's just so it doesn't look so medieval. This theme looks a little more modern, and I was going for a more modern feel, obviously. But there's a ton of stuff available on Steam for purchase as DLC. There's a jillion resources online. So like if you don't find something that you like within the normal stuff, someone's probably made it, and they're probably giving it for free and just want credit. So there's a lot of resources out there for this sort of thing. And then after you've made your map, you put these things in here, which are events. There's a bunch of different ways to do events. You're going to see probably some of the worst ways to do them in here, and a lot of it's just based on like time. For one, I don't have a ton of experience in RPG Maker. I did a lot of it when I was in middle and high school, but it's been a long time, and I know what I know. And then also there's certain ways that are like the better way of doing things, but obviously in the interest of time, I didn't do that. You have to remember that I knew from the get-go making this that it was never going to be playable by the general public. The entire idea was that I was going to be making a video on it. So I get to, I don't have to program things to work. I just have to program things to be presentable as a video format. So, for example, like you don't have to talk to Mao at the beginning. You could just get the close from the get-go. There's no flag in place to check for that. So I obviously didn't do a bunch of extra work that would have been, quite honestly, pointless. As far as the characters themselves, that's where I probably put the most work. MV has got this really awesome feature called Character Generator, where you can just go through and make, a character look like however you want, and it very conveniently creates a sprite sheet for you. So what it's doing is it's creating a walking animation up here. It's creating a downed animation, so if you are unconscious in battle. And then if you choose to use a side battler mode, because if you want, you can have a front-facing view, like a Earthbound's battle system, or you can have a side-facing view too. And it creates all of the sprites for you, which is really, really cool. And obviously, you can also just make your own assets in Photoshop or whatever, and then bring them in, whatever you want to do. So what I'll do is, let me just load in, for example, my faces. So you can see here are my faces. So I made a bunch of different faces and saved them in this sheet. And by doing that, I have a bunch of different things to choose from. So I've got the part at the very beginning where I've just gotten out of the bed and I have my glasses on, and then I've got all the other stuff as well. And then sometimes while I was in the process of writing the script, or basically actively programming the game, I'd be like, oh, I need a face, and then I'd go make a new face and add it to this sheet. So this is awesome, and it obviously it can be very limiting because your characters look a certain way. But anyone who's going to be making a for reals commercially available game is probably going to be doing their own art anyway. For just goofing around like I've done, this is incredibly helpful, and I really, really appreciate it. So yeah, the little things here are events. After you've painted your map, you make an event. So this one is Mao. You can name events, but a lot of times I was just rushing forward to try and get things done as quickly as possible. Here is the table of contents for whatever this event does. So it's just not going to be giving like a tutorial here, but just so you can understand a little bit about how this functions. The trigger here is action button, so you have to press the action button, which is generally space or return, to make this work. And then, so if we click here, we've chosen this face, and I've put in this text. Some of the markings in here just dictate pauses, which make it look a little more natural. And then, after you've said this or whatever, I came over here and got the close, which is just standing here. It's not even checking for that you're looking up. It's just if you're physically standing on the spot. Again, if it was a real game, I would have probably been like, you have to look up. But it wasn't important. So then he comes in here and it displays this message. Steven changed his clothes. It changes the actor images because it actually is like the sprite sheet that's written to that specific character. And then it turns on the switch. This is like one of the biggest fundamentals in RPG Maker. Once you know how switches work, you can start getting a lot done. So whenever I turn the switch on, switch 1 is on. This says, if switch 1 is on, this. So once I've changed my clothes, instead of doing any of this, it goes to page 2. And then we start on this long conversation, we add Mal to the party, and then we do another switch. This is called a self switch for just the event it's actually, talking about. Self switch A on, self switch A on, and there's nothing, which means that the event just disappears. So that's just a quick rundown of how something like that works. You get from map to map with teleports, which I don't think they call them teleports anymore, but back in the day, they called them teleports. So when you step on here, it takes you to the next map. And again, the assets that are included are fairly limited, which is why Mark and Rhonda's dogs all look like this. And, there's not even... They don't even have any dogs that look anything like this. But again, it's all in the interest of time. Whenever I went about making this, just to give you an idea of how I did it, and I don't know what the most efficient thing is. I don't know how most people that do RPG Maker do this. But I started by making all of the maps. So the very first thing I did when I sat down was I made this map, got it looking, pretty good, went to this map, did it, about how I wanted it. I didn't have any events in here, but I was like, okay, that looks about like the house would within the limitations of the assets I have available to me. Then I did the bus station. I'm particularly proud of how the bus station turned out. I liked that. I did I-94, and, this was something that if I had spent a little more time, I probably could have worked out the jankiness of the bus. But it also made me laugh, and it allowed me to have an opportunity to break the fourth wall again. And I was like, I'll just leave it. And I'm trying to do everything as quickly as possible. I did this game start to finish in about 8 to 10 hours. That's about how long it took, because today is Tuesday. I spent all day yesterday, Monday, making it. And then I had a little bit of testing to do earlier today, and that was basically it. So probably about 8 to 10 hours. And how I approached this after I had all the maps done is I would test things on a per map basis. So I'd test to make sure everything in this map worked. And this just dictates the starting, like the very start of the game where you like spawn at the beginning. So I'd work within this map. Then I would set the starting position here. And then I would change it so I could test everything in here. Be like, okay, is this working? Is this proper? Cool. Then I did the same thing over and over and over again. So I had all of that done before I went to bed yesterday, which I thought was great. That I told myself, I was like, if I can't do this in one day, then this was a mistake. But fortunately, I did it in one day. The last thing I had to do as of today was that I needed to make sure everything worked sequentially, because I had been testing things like, okay, I'm going to just test this. I'm going to just test this. But working from start to finish through the game is actually very different. So it was really important that I take care of that. But after I started working through it, after I got all the maps done, it really came together pretty quickly after that. I had a vague idea of what I wanted to do because I was really just remaking my day and throwing in some funny jokes and references. I thought it'd be funny if someone was trying to give me like RPG tips, because again, it's a play on the fact that this is RPG Maker. And I also thought it'd be funny if I got into an actual fight. So I had some dialogue in there about how, there isn't going to be a fight because this is more like a To the Moon style game. We're not going to have any fights. But I still had that weapon, and I get the Coke item, which helps me win the fight at the end. And it's basically just going through and programming and making the maps, systematically. And actually, if you scroll, I was gonna say if I were to walk off screen over here, like there's nothing over here. I didn't even finish the map, but I tested this enough to say, well, when I go to play it, I'm not going to be going over here. So make sure that the screen, cuts off here, and it did. And I was like, perfect. This is wonderful. So I had a lot of people asking about like, I'd love to play it to hear what the other stuff says. But you have to understand, this was always made to never be played. It was just to be a video. So these characters, they don't say anything because I knew I wasn't going to be talking to them. Someone had even asked like, I wonder what the flavor text is if you select the purple stuff. And like there isn't any, because I knew in the game that I would be selecting Coke. Again, I took a lot of shortcuts here because those options would have never been seen, because this was never intended to be played. It was actually really interesting making the video portion of this, because I had tested everything so much that I was very intricately familiar with all of the dialogue. And because of that, I would just been like skipping through the dialogue because I already knew it, I wrote it, that when it came time to actually record myself playing the game, I had to really like consciously slow down because I knew people would be reading it. So that was kind of the biggest struggle, was to remember like, hey, you know, when you go and you talk to her, you've got to slow down, because if you don't, it's not gonna look right on you know, the vlog. But I think that's about it. It's pretty straightforward. The map making was probably the hardest thing for me, because like, you know, this is not a tile set for an airport, and I have to do my best with my limited resources to make it look like an airport, because I can't make my own assets. If I do that, it's immediately going to dramatically increase the time. So it's really a race against the clock to use what I've got in here, you know, in these 3 little asset bins, to make a very convincing airport. And I think I did all right. Security's a little hilarious, but you know, I was like, I could spend a ton of time doing that, and I was like, I don't think I want to. When I first thought about it, to be honest, there was a lot of stuff I wasn't even going to include. I was actually going to have it where we get to the airport and then we just are on the plane. And I decided at the last second, while I was working on it and going through the maps, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to give it a shot. And it added a lot of time to do all this, but I think it added a lot also, so I ended up being okay with it. Now, as far as like the fight and everything like that happens up here in the database. The database is where you can actually put in like all of your heroes. You can adjust all of the options. So for Mal and myself, I changed our classes from vlogger to vlogger and artist. I think the default is like hero and priest or something. And I adjusted some of our stuff. I decided I really didn't want to have magic because I didn't want to deal with doing that. Again, it's all in the interest of time, because I'm trying to create this entire thing in a day. So I just, instead of giving myself skills and abilities and things like that, I was like, no, I'll just not have any MP. But there's a part in the video where I actually show myself equipping the sword, and Mao has MP, which is just kind of a little fun bonus because I never had adjusted any of this. The other thing was that when I was working on the bus station part, originally Rhonda didn't go inside with Mark, but I wanted to show us equipping the sword because that was important later, and Rhonda was in our party. And the problem is the levels that I have us set at are our ages, and I was like, well, I don't want to put Rhonda's age in there. And then I was like, well, maybe I could put her as like level 99 or something, because she's like, you know, this high level character. And I was like, you know, this is all too complicated. Whenever Mark goes inside, I'll just have it say that she went inside too. That way, when I show the menu for the one time I show it, I don't have to try and like skirt around the fact that the levels are our ages, except for her for some reason. So the enemies, these enemies are the default enemies. I haven't changed anything here. The Minotaur is one of the default enemies that you get. There's a bunch of other ones you can add. It doesn't come with just 4, but these are the 4 that are already in the database. The only thing I did was I added a new complain ability because I thought it would be funny if the Minotaur complained about being on or being loud in the plane. That's just a skill I added where it activates an event, and the event is listed in here, and it just says, you gotta be quiet on a plane, so that can run in the battle. Otherwise, the skills are pretty self-explanatory. You know, I made the Coke item. I actually I gave it this special image, and that was pretty easy too, because all of these are just PNG files. I just exported this out, and I found what it was referencing, and I took it into Photoshop and put a Coke can on it, and I was like, okay, that's fun. That's something that took me like a minute, and I was willing to put like 1 extra minute in it. You know, making art assets by hand, no. Throwing a Coke can in here, sure, that's not that bad. You know, obviously, for a lot of this stuff, I just renamed things. Because again, this was never meant to be a game, it was meant to be a video, and that was the idea. And I think that's about it. I think that's a good... It took me about 20 minutes, but I think that's a good little, I guess, overview of how I did everything. It's been a while since I've touched RPG Maker. The last time was when I got MV, whenever it first came out, and you know, I'm a little rusty on some things for sure, but it was fun to get back into it. I did this so much when I was in middle and high school, and I just loved it. I've got games on floppy disks somewhere that I would love to find someday and try and bring to the channel. But you know, this was super enjoyable. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And you know, I really hope that this maybe inspires you, even if it's not something that you're working towards commercially. Making games like this and starting to get some like game development knowledge like in your head, if that's something that is of interest to you, is great. Like, not only is RPG Maker tool powerful enough to make a commercial game, but if you want to just play around with it, it's a great tool. It's a great creative outlet, and I definitely encourage it. This is, again, this is MV, so this is the latest one, but you can find other ones for cheaper, so don't let that stand in your way. But if you want the latest one, it is MV. That's the one that I've got here. But yeah, it's wonderful. I definitely encourage it. There's a lot of things that you can make. There's a lot of wonderful games that have been made with the RPG Maker engine. Some of the more successful ones, To the Moon, obviously, has done exceedingly well, and was made in RPG Maker. One Shot is another game that was made in RPG Maker, and there's a lot of people that are using it and doing things that I never even thought were possible. But the key thing to remember is that it's so easy, and I think they've used this advertising slogan before, but it's so easy a child could do it. And it's true. It's literally painting the map and, you know, deciding, you know, what happens and where, and there's so much you can do with this. And if you've never used it and you have an interest in it, I highly encourage it, because it is, you know, if nothing else, it's a really fun creative outlet. Anyway, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is kind of a weird one, but I thought this explanation would help, because I know so many people have, you know, it's only been out for a little bit, and so many people are enjoying the video. And I hope this gave a fun behind-the-scenes look at everything. You know, if I didn't interact with someone in the video, that's because they literally don't do anything. These are just characters to fill the plane. You know, it's just basically for looks. And as far as like me doing something like this in the future, it's totally possible. I would love the opportunity to actually make a game someday. You know, either one that was based on, you know, us and our friends and wacky, you know, silly adventures, or something a little more serious. But in the meantime, I'm happy to create this sort of silly content and make some people on the internet smile. Thanks for watching, and as always, let's meet back tomorrow, shall we?